Welcome back to another episode of CFO Chronicles, The Secrets Behind Success, the podcast where we explore the stories, strategies, and the sharp thinking behind the financial leaders shaping today's most resilient businesses. I'm your host, James Donovan, and today's guest is someone who's redefining what it means to be a trusted financial partner. Sonny Grappone is the founder of Precision Accounting and Consulting, a firm known for blending rock-solid financial accuracy with high-level strategic insight. His team helps businesses do more than just keep the books. They help leaders make decisions with clarity, confidence, and control. Whether it's navigating complex financial landscapes, identifying inefficiencies, or proactively planning for growth, Sonny brings a steady, client-focused mindset that a lot of firms talk about, but very few deliver on. Today, we're going to dig into his entrepreneurial journey, what sets Precision apart, and what he sees coming next for the accounting world. Let's jump in. Sonny, it's so great having you on here today. I can't wait to get into more of your story, but let's kick things off with your origin story. What led you to launch Precision Accounting and Consulting?
Well, it was a combination of things. I graduated, I would say, from college back in 2000, what was it, 2018, I think? No, I'm sorry. Wow. It's been a while, 2016. I worked a lot in corporate for a while. I worked in New York City, Manhattan. I'm located in Long Island, New York. So I worked in Manhattan, some pretty big firms. Cantor Fitzgerald was the last one that I worked at. I got really tired of the corporate world. In corporate accounting, you really don't learn the crux of accounting. Just to give an example of that. In most of my jobs, because the corporations were so big, you would work on one piece of a financial statement, as opposed to the whole big picture. So basically, I really got tired of that, and it came to the point where it was more about sanity than money. So when I came back, I took less money coming back home and to be closer to my wife and kids. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I worked for an individual that I consulted with, and he pretty much put it out there for us. He said the business is out there for you to make there. Whatever you bring in, I would like you to be a part of it. There wasn't a lot of people taking that initiative, but I kind of took it upon myself as I had my own side business on the side already. And I made a lot of networking. I knew I had to get in front of a lot of people and make a name for myself in my industry. We are a niche accounting firm. At first, we did a lot of hospitality, hotels, restaurants, and I've kind of expanded that and went outside that box. And I got us a huge alliance with a construction payroll company that kind of launched us, and we became very heavily involved in construction, and then later branched off into law firms, and now we take care of medical practices, manufacturing. So it basically turned into, as my boss at the time put it out there, if you want to bring in the business is out there for you. And I exceeded those expectations, and he ended up becoming a partner with me in my own practice now, which we've had for a good amount of time now.
That's awesome. What was or I guess, was there a specific moment or gap you saw in the market that pushed you to go all in on your own firm?
Sure, after COVID. So, like I said, precision was always there, but it didn't, surpass its peak of revenue until after COVID, because there was such a need of good accounting out there. Because what happened was people, it was a time when people were suffering and they needed money, they needed funding, right? So they had to go to these banks to get PPP. You know, and a lot of people are applying for the employee retention credit, all these different types of loans. In order to do that, especially with the PPP, you needed proper financials, and nobody ever looks at their financials with their accountant. They're more in tune with where's my financials for my taxes. And finally, when they needed good financials, and they realized kind of what their account was doing, one plus one didn't equal two. They didn't have both sides of the equation, and so we kind of capitalized on that because we were very familiar with what was needed on the PPP background, on certain tax credits that people needed to apply for, what the credentials they needed, and we pounced on that while people needed a good accountant, and we succeeded. Word of mouth spread and our reach also. I think a lot of people attest to this that are in business after COVID. Our reach was specifically only New York, but after COVID, it exploded because now we were able to work remote with people all over the country. So now I have clients in California, every major city, pretty much, Florida, Chicago, Seattle. Tennessee, we have a few clients in there. So that really was the main jumping off point for us in my business personally, from what I've seen.
Okay, understood. How involved did you get with ERC? Because we started, that's I would say where we really started to cut our teeth in the accounting world. Got introduced to the accounting space, and then very quickly a prospect we were speaking to said, "Hey, I'm not looking for accounting leads. I'm looking for tax credit leads." And this was very early days with ERC, and he introduced me to the employer retention tax credit. And we ran with that, I think, for the next 2.5, 3 years until every man and their dog was selling it. And then it just became, it was hard to
Oversaturated.
find, yeah, saturated and hard to find a business who had more than, three people who didn't know about it. But I'm curious, like, what was your experience like? How did you guys navigate those waters? Because in the early days, it very much sounded to people like this sounds way too good to be true. I don't want to do this. So how did you guys navigate that and find success?
It was first of all, it was life changing. It was. I have to say, the employee retention credit was like, to us, it was too good to be true, right? My partner, Doug, he is what we call the tax guru, right? He's just heavily invested in the tax code. We're very, one half of our business CFO, the other half is tax planning, right? And so he's always in the tax code. So when he found out about it, he found out about it literally the day before it was brought into legislation. And he brought this to me and he's like, this can't be true. He's like, and he's reading it to me, and I'm like, this is way better than PPP. And how does nobody know about this? And so we talked we consulted with a few tax attorneys, and because we were like, we got to get on this. Nobody knows about it. So we had a few restaurants that we had under our belt at the time, and we kind of told the restaurants, this is tax credit. Why don't we try it out? So they had about 8 locations. So our first one, we got them about 4.5 million. All right. And when we applied for this, like I said, nobody was talking about this. We were like way ahead of the curve. But it went 6 months where it was just silence. And we were like, if we got this wrong, we are in serious trouble because now we just filed an amendment, right, to these people's payroll, their 941s, right? And if they don't get this credit, now they're going to owe a lot of money because they're going to get that credit back. And if they get audited, so we were like a lot of sleepless nights those first 6 months, and hoping that this was going to be true because we went over it numerous times. And then once the first check came in, it was like it just came in full steam ahead, and it was just like they started talking. And by the end of this whole thing, I mean, we had processed, I can't even tell you, probably over thousands. I would say we processed. We made a lot. It definitely became way oversaturated. We went by very strict guidelines. We didn't go by supply chain, which a lot of people did because we knew it was going to be iffy and it was very hard to prove. We strictly went by revenue, and we fell into the realm of hospitality where almost every restaurant qualified. That's another jumping off point where how I expanded my business was I made good potential leads with guys that were marketing this. And there was two guys in particular that were marketing this and had no idea how to process it and needed a good processor. They came to me specifically, and I brought this to my partner, and it just like took off for us. I mean, and because of that, now we are still getting business from those ERC clients in other areas of accounting, whether it be tax planning, whether it be just regular accounting. We've got them got involved in wellness programs now. There's a whole host of things that we've been involved in that have been directly connected to ERC, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because when people hear ERC, they lose a bad taste in their mouth. Like, oh, I got called about that 6, 7 times, and I'm like, we're a legit CPA firm, right? So like,
I'll bet.
we went by the books.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. I'm pumped to hear you had so much success there and you're able to help out so many other businesses and just the ripple effect that was created. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
mentioned a couple times now the hospitality space. Do you work with any other industries? Is there patterns that you find maybe in the hospitality space with other industries that are challenges these industries face?
Yeah, a lack of good accounting, like I said, especially in hospitality, they're very unorganized. We still do a lot of restaurants, but like I said, my firm position has like kind of veered off that end because at the same time, hospitality is not black and white, right? Like every other, and I just say this, and no knock against other accountants, but we've hired other accountants, especially guys with a lot of experience, and that didn't have experience in hospitality. We brought them in and they couldn't make heads or tails, right? Because they don't do things the conventional way. So that's why I've made it a point to dive into other industries that are a little more profitable too. Because a restaurant client will take you anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a month easily, as opposed to a construction client or a law firm or whatever it may be. So I've actually dived into a lot in the construction industry, specifically with unions and non-union prevailing wage type of work. I'm trying to develop a new niche in the job costing area. One thing I will say is 75% of contractors, guys that GCs that own these businesses, they do not job cost. They don't cost anything. Okay. When I tell you they do not know how much they are making off their projects, it astounds me because I'm like, how do you not know how much you're making off each? And none of them know, and they know it's so valuable, but they don't know where to start. It's so overwhelming to them. So, and there's not a lot of accounts that do it or offer it. So I'm trying to capitalize on that niche, and it's actually working. So that's the different area that I'm going outside of hospitality right now that I'm trying to really hone in on and see because people could see the value in it.
Yeah. It is interesting from, I mean, any professional's point of view where they're sitting, like what may seem obvious to everyone else is not. So that's why you're paid for what you do, and it's where you can, bring back the nights where people can fall asleep now because they know what's going on. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, there's things that we come across with our clients or everyone we speak to. It's like, how do you not know that? Like it seems so obvious, but I've been blessed where I get to work with accountants now and CFOs. I think I have more insight to my own numbers, or I'm getting better in that regard. But a lot of this stuff is just like I have no idea what I'm looking at or where to look because it's not my area of expertise. It's not. I just didn't. Yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's so many businesses in outside of their area of expertise, I guess.
Yeah, it's just you got to bring that awareness to them. So many people, it amazes me, a lot of business owners, and this is no fault to their own, they operate with the mentality is like, if I can make payroll and I can pay myself, I'm okay. And that is not the way to run a business. And they run that business like for years like that, which like I'm like, "What?" So imagine if I give you these numbers now in detail, like simple like a trend analysis, right? Like let's see how you're doing month to month. Let's compare these numbers. What are your percentage changes? Did you go up in your cost of goods sold and your expenses? Why did you go up 20%? Why I just had a client last week I was going over with, we were going over prior year comparisons. His revenue stayed the same and his payroll went up almost $500,000 and he had no idea. Like this is like, and like I'm like, this is why you're losing so much money. It's like, how do you not know that your payroll's gotten skyrocketed? That's a significant increase, and he just didn't have his hand on the pulse. And now, you know, you know, a month later, he's pretty much, making a profit. He's made the cuts that he needs to. And, that's the value. Because if I don't bring that type of, insight, then I'm just like any other account. I'm just getting your financials for your taxes and so that's where we kind of have to capitalize, in my industry at least.
Yeah, that's fair. So what are some of the most common red flags you see when a new client first comes to you?
Uh, Gosh, balance sheet, balance sheet. So the balance sheet is like it's like a bad word. I feel like to other accounts or like they just when we get these books, nobody pays attention to the balance sheet, or they don't communicate with their tax accountant, right? For business owners, your tax accountant at the end of the year, they're supposed to give your accountant these entries to make so it can agree to the tax return, right? But a lot of accounts aren't doing that. So like we get these balance sheets that are like horrendous, and then like the only things that people will look at if they do look at their financials are their profit and loss statements. And profit and loss statements, their balances don't carry forward, right? But balance sheets do. So you'll see these huge balances creep up that are like, $300,000, in liabilities. And like, they have assets that are just like with negative balances. And it's just like, so like those are like, and like that, for example, right? In a time when there's high interest rates and people are looking for competitive lending, they're going to ask you for financial statements. And if you don't have those proper financial statements, you're screwed, or you're going to get somewhere where, like hospitality, for example, they're paying these POS systems, Toast, Square, all these, they lend you money now, right? They're paying upwards of 50% in interest rates and like that, and they don't ask for financials, but because of that, right? So you're gonna have to pay for it, and these are simple things that can be prevented if you just take the right steps in the beginning.
That's brutal, 50%. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, Sonny, how do you guys help shift your clients' mindsets or from just keeping the books clean to using their numbers to actually drive decisions?
So it's funny. It's like you kind of have to like paint by numbers for them. It's like you gotta really, and like you said, like this is to no insult to them at all. This isn't, because that's not their job, and I actually want that. I want people that are not going to get involved, right, in more so the day-to-day accounting, because like this is what I do. Let me do what I do, and let me help you make money. But I want someone that knows that, like law firms are a perfect example of that. They'll always tell you, I'm just concerned with making money. You do your thing. I don't want any surprises, right? So when I get those type of people, it's all about the presentation on how you deliver those numbers when you send those emails. If you're just sending an attachment with a P&L, balance sheet, cash flow statement, and say, here's your financials for the month. If you have any questions, please contact me. Like that's, they're just gonna go right past it. You know what I mean? So like, I'll make a nice presentation where like I'll kind of like, even you can now use an AI, like it can make these white paper presentations for you that can break down significant data that will kind of jump out at you. Like I was explaining before, showing them where their numbers are shifting, on a month-to-month basis, or your net income went down from prior month, 20%, here's why, you have expenses that you're not capitalizing that should be depreciated right now that will give you significant tax savings, but in like, very short one page that kind of hits you like in the stomach, where like, I got to do something here, like that's it's all about the delivery and how you're presenting it, in order for them to actually look at that. If I'm going to hand them, a financial statement and just say, here, unless they're savvy enough where they can, make heads or tails, and there are owners like that, you're not going to get much from them. But that's how I approach that.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's probably just from my where I'm sitting. I mean I had to unfortunately let go of a bookkeeper I used for a couple of years, and since hired a new fractional CFO to come in and help. But we were running with never even getting a P&L for I think 2.5, 3 years. Like it didn't
Wow.
even, and it was just something that I wasn't even aware of that we should have until
Okay.
started speaking with more clients and more prospects, and helping our clients get more of their own fractional CFO clients. I was like, wait a minute. All these things that I'm helping you get to help other businesses, I don't even have in my own backyard. And since doing that, it's opened up a whole new light of, okay, this is what our numbers are saying. And it's scary at first when, like you said, oh, you're paying yourself, you're running payroll and things are good. starting to see and learn more about the numbers. It can be scary, but now we have those, I guess, starting points or metrics to build from. But to your point of what you're preparing to send your clients, I think that's so important because even though I work in this industry from the marketing perspective, learning about the accounting and fractional CFOs, I'm still not the best at reading the P&L or the reports that are sent over. So having someone who can jump in to break that down so it's more digestible, like you said, to paint by numbers, and almost assuming your clients don't know what they're looking at, because even just by saying, if you have any questions, let me know, they probably have a ton of questions and they're just not going to let you know. So I
Yeah.
really like how you're proactive and getting ahead of that and saying, here's what you should focus on. Here's the important pieces. If you're going to skim through, this is the stuff that, it's bolded. And of course, relying on AI, or not relying, but utilizing AI to help with that heavy lift. I think that's awesome. I'm sure your clients really
Yeah.
appreciate that as well.
Yeah, it's a big change and it's a big area that I've been expanding on, using and even using AI to kind of help me, figure out stuff that would take me hours, and just, giving it to them in that sense. And and you have some clients that like, I've had some clients that do take a proactive approach, but take the totally wrong approach to looking at their financials. I had a guy, that was losing probably about 100 grand a month, like literally for 2 years. Still kept us, and I just, and he's looking at how much heat his heating lamps are using, how much electricity they're using on a daily basis, and he's losing 100 grand a month, and I'm like, dude, it's your payroll. You're paying overtime, you're paying benefits, like you can't be doing this in the hospitality industry. It's just not going to work, And same thing in the construction industry, like guys would another thing that we try to be proactive with that I've started is insurance, right? And so these guys, they especially in startups, any startup, they're gonna get killed with insurance. And if they're not, when you ask them, how are you paying for your premiums, at the end of the year? I don't know. I'm paying it out of profit. Why are you paying out of profit? Why aren't you billing your clients from it? Because if you like, I'm just using an example, workers' compensation is a perfect example, general liability insurance, right? They base that off payroll, right? So if your payroll gets higher, right, you're going to get hit with an audit at the end of the year saying that you estimated your payroll to be this and now it's this. You owe us a lot more money. That's what puts these contractors out of business. A lot of these startups, I would say 50% of them go under because of that. They can't afford their audit at the end of the year. So like I'm educating them now, like, coming in and telling them like, listen, like, here's your insurance policy, here's your payroll. Like, let's come up with a game plan to kind of gauge your payroll to make sure you're keeping up with your policies. And if not, let's bid them into your projects. Like this is how much you should be pricing in, And that's another thing that's been huge because this is a reoccurring problem that they're not seeing. And they don't have the awareness to realize that, and nor should they. Who's going to think of that? But at the end of the day, that's my job. And so it's just filling those gaps, to where people don't see.
Um, what's one thing you believed in early on in your entrepreneurial journey that has since changed, a handful of years in?
Uh, Dealing with rejection. Yeah, dealing with rejection. When my first time getting into business and getting clients, like, and the second I got like a lead in, right, or like I had a meeting with them, I'm already planning like months ahead already, like saying like, all right, this is going to be my revenue. This is how much I'm going to have now. And like they're just being let down, like, like where they don't sign with me or, that, learning how to deal with that disappointment, in the beginning was really hard for me, and like obsessing over it, at nighttime, like just being like, what did I do wrong? Like, and literally, and I would come with the proactive approach after. If they didn't, I would be very professional and I would say, listen, just for my, awareness, like where did I go wrong? How come? And, sometimes it was just like it wasn't the right fit, but most of the time too, a lot of people find it hard to change accounts for some reason, and they just like still want to stick with their own guy. But I've gotten a lot better with it too, and pricing also, I would say. pricing. I used to be, especially in the beginning, right? You want any business, so you take anything, right? But now I kind of live and die by my prices. I know my value, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I'm going to bring to the table, and I know how much I'm going to be saving you. And at the end, and my motto is that I want to save you more than my fee, at the end of the year, and usually that's my goal, and I usually accomplish that. So, I usually do not budge, on my prices, and more people respect that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I get more clients that way, to be honest with you, as opposed to just like, oh, you want it for X amount of dollars per month? Okay. And it's like, it's just, it doesn't give off the right vibe, in my opinion. So those are the two things I would say.
That's really good. Any hard-won lessons you'd pass on to other firm owners or CFOs?
Uh, in this industry, being a CFO, know your audience, right? I think that's a very important lesson. Me and my partner talk about it all the time. It's like, going outside of your scope, right? Like when you give a contract and like all of a sudden you're doing stuff that's not in that contract, right? Like, for example, if I have a client that, is not interested in financials and they're okay with that, and they're okay with getting all they want is their tax return done, or they want quarterly financials, or they want to speak to you once every 6 months, fine like that. And we're like going overboard trying to deliver more than they want, and it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. Like, like know your audience, give them what they want, and at the end of the day, I feel they'll respect you and stay with you longer. And I have noticed that, as opposed to guys that, want to move onward and we didn't do enough for we did over the amount for it and it didn't save the relationship, so really knowing what you're delivering to your clients and just being aware of that.
Perfect. I got two final kind of rapid fire questions for you, Sonny, and then just one where people can get in touch with you. But I'm really curious to know what's the best financial advice that you've ever received?
Best financial advice I have ever received. Ah, gosh, that's the best financial advice I have ever seen. I've been ever given. Gosh. I wouldn't say like it's more financial advice. I would say it's just more of how I guess the 30, like, I should say more so like the 30 30 30 rule, like, and I take that down to my mother, and that's not even from like some big, it's literally from my mother. When I got my first job when I was 16, my mother always made me pay my own bills, like insurance, whatever, and she wouldn't make me break down like, here's your monthly expenses, every week, divide by four, and that's what you're putting away per week. And, she was very strict with me, and, 30% for your bills, 30% for savings, and then, your other 30%, to 40%, you kind of split up if you want to invest it, and then 20% for play, and like, so many years later, I still live by that. And, and also always having 6 months worth of expenses in the bank, and that's something I always tell my clients, and it's never failed them. And I would say 50% do it, probably a little less.
Yeah.
But anytime like COVID's happened or anything like that, they wouldn't regret that, So, but I still use that 30 30 30 rule, to this day, of allocating, my savings, my bills, my investments, and then just having some play money.
Love it. It's so simple, but yet probably so few execute on the simplicity of things.
Yeah.
When you're not deep in the spreadsheets and strategy, how do you recharge?
Golf.
Nice. What's your handicap?
Golf. I am currently at a 11.5 right now. I
Nice.
was lower, but I shot at 80, 83 though yesterday. I was very happy.
Yeah,
So
awesome. Congrats. That's cool.
yeah, so yeah, it's just a great release. Great for networking too, and yeah, I just like being outdoors for 4 hours, kind of just forget about everything. Anything that can make you be present, I'm game.
Yeah, awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. How often do you get out during the week? I've been so bad this summer for getting out. I'm trying to be way more intentional the rest of the summer about booking time so that I go rather than, oh, there's time. Let's find a tea time?
Yeah, well, Long Island is like crazy with tea times, especially I live literally right next to Bethpage, so they're
Okay.
having the Ryder Cup there this year, and so like Bethpage, no joke, people are lining up the day before, like today, people are lining up at 8 a.m. for tomorrow morning in the parking lot, sleeping out for a tea time. So it's like insane. Yeah. So I actually joined the club this year. So so that's helped a lot. And so I would say probably twice a week if I'm lucky, like, one during the week with the
Yeah.
client and then on the weekends, getting out early, because I got two kids under four. So, my wife only lets me if I get out like around like 6 o'clock in the morning. So, where are you guys located, by the way?
I'm in Eastern Canada, New Brunswick. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
I actually have a few guys I work with in Canada also. I got to get down to Banff, man. I'm dying to get down and play I think it's Alberta or something like that, where Banff
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Near Lake Louise.
yeah.
Cool. So, Sonny, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they have questions, they want to potentially hire you, they want to pick your brain, continue the conversation. Where should we send them?
Yeah, so you could go to precisionaccountingandconsulting.com, okay? You could also reach out to me via social media, LinkedIn, Sonny Grappone, president of precisionaccountingconsulting.com. There are other precision accounting, but just put down Melville, New York, and our website will come up. Yeah, and you could just reach out for a free consultation. And my email is sgr precisionaccountingconsulting.com. And you could also reach out through email.
Perfect. We'll put it all in the show notes so people can get in touch. Sonny, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, sharing your insight. I learned a lot. I know the audience will learn a ton too. Really appreciate this. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. I hope you found value in today's conversation. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please rate and review the show. It helps others discover the insights we share here. Second, if you're ready to take your business to the next level and attract the high-end clients you deserve, head over to accountingleadsnow.com or click the link in the show notes to book your strategy call. It's time to position yourself as the advisor your clients need. And don't forget, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on what's happening in the world of accounting and financial growth. We've got exciting topics coming up, so stay tuned for the next episode of CFO Chronicles. Until then, keep pushing forward. Your growth is just one strategic move away.
Thanks for listening to CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. We hope today's episode provided valuable strategies to help you attract more high-paying clients. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with fellow professionals. Connect with us on LinkedIn and leave a review or comment to join the conversation. Your feedback helps us bring you the best insights in finance and marketing. Until next time, keep striving for success and unlocking your business's potential.